I love that. I'm so glad you're bringing that up. The question is, or no, there's many questions. One of the things to consider is, well, is it just the house? Because, there's a policy which you mentioned, which is important that you didn't touch on, but kind of around you did, which is the fact that we have our principal residence not being taxed, right? If we
Yes.
just change that and make it that all of a sudden there's tax on your principal residence, it changes the economics. It changes my decision of whether I want to buy. And we have in this country a big problem of productivity, such that it makes my blood boil that we have so much opportunity and we're not investing in it. And the reason is, well, part of the reason, because there's no correlation
Yeah.
directly, but there's part of the reason is I can borrow money to buy a property of any kind. If I buy it personally, they'll lend it to me at low single digits, but same human, knock on the door and say, I want to borrow money for my Veritas group of companies that is cash flow positive for 26 years and growing steadily. They say, sure, Mr. Scilipoti, if you want to guarantee it, happy to lend you the money. And so we're missing the boat. We actually support buying property because that has been kind of like, created all kinds of wealth.
Well, let's have our blood boil together on this issue for a few more minutes and dig in a bit deeper. So this isn't a conversation I always have in the podcast that I do, but I just love the getting into the productivity issue early on and recognizing how it's tied to actually our dysfunctional housing system.
Yes.
And so you've nailed it. There are tax incentives that incline people to borrow and borrow and borrow to bid up the price of something that already exists, because the after-tax returns on that kind of investment are particularly good. And then our chartered banks actually have a practice of being much more comfortable lending for people to bid up the price of some asset that already exists, rather than lending so people can borrow and build new industries, build new companies that drive our productivity, drive the greening of our economy as we're dealing with extreme weather, drive manufacturing, etc., drive innovations in AI. And so we need a fundamental shift in the incentives that our regulators are giving to chartered banks in terms of their lending practices, and tax policy is it's incentivizing how Canadians borrow money and then where they invest it. And we got to move away from an economy that's growing our GDP because we're pumping up real estate rental and leasing, but most of the pumping is simply borrowing more to bid up the price of a home that already exists. It doesn't make it a better home. It simply makes the existing homeowner more wealthy. I've been benefiting from that, but it makes the cost of living really much more challenging. And